Alright, so today we're going to simplify algebraic expressions and the distributive property, and use the distributive property. So write down this title in your notes and let's get started. Okay, so what we're going to do to simplify algebraic expressions is we're going to combine like terms. Combine like terms. You want to write that down. So here we'll start. What are like terms? Well, we did this last year, but let's review. Like terms are terms that contain the same variables with corresponding variables having the same powers. So terms that are like would be, if you have an x, then you could add that to a 2x. So if you have 1x plus 2x, you would get 3x. Now notice that it has the same variable and you can add them together. We're going to combine them. So if it's not like terms, okay, you can't combine an x plus an x squared. You can't combine that. You can't combine an x plus a y. You can't combine that. The only ones you can combine are if they are like terms, okay? And like terms have the same variables, and the variables that they have to have the same powers. So let's practice with 6, 7, and 8 here. So what we want to do is combine the like terms and simplify these expressions. Alright, so write down number 6, and it's 7x minus 5 minus 3y minus 10x plus 8y minus 8. First we're going to look at 7x. Are there any other terms that have just an x? Well, here we have a negative 10x. Now this says minus 10x, but I want you to put a box all the way around the minus sign and the 10x, because if it has a minus sign in front of it, that means for this purpose it's a negative 10x. So I'm going to combine the positive 7x and the negative 10x. 7 plus a negative 10 is negative 3x. Next, I'm going to take the minus, well, let's start with the y, the variables. So now I have a negative 3y. So when you're combining, make sure you have that minus sign in front, because that makes that a negative 3y. So you have a negative 3y and you have a positive 8y. Negative 3y plus positive 8y makes positive 5y, because a positive 8 and a negative 3 is positive 5y. Then the last one, we have just constants. We have a negative 5 and a negative 8. So negative 5, negative 8 makes negative 13. So now that's the simplified version of that expression. Let's do the next one. We'll start with negative 2x and look for anything that has an x, and we see that this is minus 3x, so we're going to call that a negative 3x. We're going to combine a negative 2x and a negative 3x, add that together, and you get negative 5x. Then we will do positive 9y here. Put the plus sign in front of it. That makes it a positive 9y. And here we have a negative 9y. A positive 9y plus a negative 9y, that makes 0. So those cancel each other out. And the last one is a constant, negative 6. Remember, a constant does not have a variable. It's just a number that doesn't change. So we'll just leave that there. Now that is the simplified version of that expression. Let's try the next one. Write it down. 4xy minus 4xz plus 7xy minus 11yz. Notice these have two variables in them. So in order to combine them, you have to have the same variables with the same power. So I'm looking for a 4xy, and I see that there's one other expression that has an x and a y in it. So I'm going to combine them. 4xy plus 7xy, that makes 11xy. Then I will do the minus 4xz or negative 4xz. This has a yz, so I can't combine those, so I'm just going to write what I can't combine. I'm just going to write. So I have a negative 4xz, and the last one is I can't combine with anything. It's just by itself, so I'll just write it over here, negative 11yz. and that is the simplified algebraic expression. Okay, let's go on to the next part. All right, so now we're going to simplify the expression and then evaluate it like we've done before. So first we simplify. So we combine like terms. Oops, sorry. Let's go back to that. Yeah. 7x. So here's a 7x. And then we have a minus x. So you have a 7x plus a negative 1x. If it doesn't have a number in front of it, there's a 1 there. So 7x plus negative 1x. 7 plus negative 1 makes 6x. See how you have to know your integers very well. Then we have a negative 1y, and another negative 1y. So a negative 1y plus another negative 1y makes negative 2y. Negative 1 plus negative 1 is negative 2. Then we have a negative z, negative 1z, and a positive 1z. Well, when I combine those, they cancel each other out. So my simplified expression is 6x minus 2y. Then I will evaluate, which means I substitute. So I substitute. I have a 6 times x. X is 2. Notice that whatever I substitute, I put in parentheses. Minus the 2. And then in parentheses is the y, which is negative 4. Now I follow order of operations. So this is 12 minus, and then 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. So now I keep, change. So keep the 12, change that to adding, change that to the opposite sign, and I get 20. So the value of that expression is 20. Let's do one more. I have a problem here, so write it down. 5x minus 2xy plus 4y, and so on. So let's start with the 5x and look for anything that has just one x, and I see that I have it here. I have a 5x plus 2x, so that makes 7x. Then I have a negative 2xy. Negative 2xy, I'm looking for an x and a y, and I see it at the end. So I have a negative 2xy and a positive 3xy. A negative 2 and a positive 3 makes positive 1xy. Now notice I don't usually write the 1. I just leave it off. Next is the y. So I have a 4y, positive 4y, and I have a minus 3y. So a 4y plus a negative 3y. 4 plus negative 3 makes 1y. So I'm going to put positive 1y. I'm not going to write the 1, just going to write the y. Lastly, I have a negative z by itself, so I'll bring that over. That's the simplified version. Now we're going to evaluate. So I substitute. So I start with 7, and I substitute the 2 for x. And then plus, then I have xy, so I'm going to put both of those in parentheses. The x is 2. The y is a negative 4, so I put that in parentheses. Then I have plus y, so plus, and y is a negative 4, so I just put that in parentheses. And then I have minus z, and z is 5. So now I've substituted, and now I do order of operations. So I have to find the multiplying first. So 7 times 2, 14. 2 times negative 4 is a negative 8. Bring down this plus sign. Then I have plus a negative 4, and then I have minus 5. So now I go from left to right. So 14 plus negative 8 makes 6. 6 plus a negative 4, that's this one. That's going to be a positive 2. And then 2 minus 5 is equal to, keep, change. So keep the 2. Change that to adding, change that to a negative. 2 plus a negative 5 is negative 3. So the value of that expression is negative 3. Okay, now we're going to go into the distributive property. Okay, so it says the distributive property is used often, and it is very important that this property be applied correctly. especially when the value that you are distributing is negative. So we're going to what they call distribute a negative. So look at these examples and write the first one down. 5 minus 7, parentheses 2n plus 1. So we're going to simplify this. So the first thing we want to do is, because you have this 7 on the outside, you must distribute it. So when you're simplifying, if you have parentheses in your expression, in order to simplify it, the very first thing you must do is distributive property to get rid of parentheses. So you might want to write that down. The first thing that you do is distributive property to eliminate and get rid of the parentheses. So let me show you how you would do that. So you would bring down the 5, and then you're going to take this 7, but notice there's a subtraction sign in front of it. So if there's a subtraction sign in front of that, that makes that a negative 7, and you're going to multiply both of these terms by a negative 7. So I'm going to take a negative 7 and multiply it times 2n. So negative 7 times 2 is negative 14, and I just include the n. Then I'm going to take the negative 7 and multiply it times the 1. A negative 7 times a positive 1 makes a negative 7. Now I'm going to combine like terms. So the only terms that I have alike are a constant of 5 and a negative 7. So I'm just going to bring that negative 14 in, just because we usually put the variable term before the other ones. And then I'm going to combine a 5, positive 5, and a negative 7. 5 plus negative 7 is negative 2. So this is a simplified expression. Let's write down the next one. The next one is number 9. 11 minus, and then in parentheses, 5x plus 4. Well, in this particular problem, you'll notice that there's no number in front of the parentheses. So when there's no number there and you have a minus sign, you can write a 1, because this means 11 minus 1 times that term. So bring down your 11. All right, and notice you have a negative 1 now in front. You're going to take the negative 1 and multiply it times each term. So we want to get rid of the parentheses. So a negative 1 multiplied by 5x makes negative 5x. And a negative 1 multiplied by a positive 4 makes a negative 4. Now notice all we did, basically, when you have a negative 1 in front, is you're just reversing the signs of what's inside and putting them down here. So now we combine like terms. So I'm going to take the negative 5x, and I'm going to put it in front because the variable term goes in front. And then I'm going to take the positive 11 and the negative 4 and combine them. 11 plus a negative 4 is 7. And that's going to be a simplified version. Okay, now the next two problems have two sets of parentheses in them. So we're going to do the same thing, only it's just going to be a little more complicated. Okay, for number 10, notice that we're going to start with the first term, and notice that you have a negative 5 on the outside. We're going to distribute that by multiplying each term inside by a negative 5. So the first is negative 5 times 3y. So negative 5 times 3y is negative 15y. Then the second one is kind of interesting because you have a minus sign in front of that 7. So that means you have a negative 5 times a negative 7. A negative 5 times a negative 7 makes a positive 35. Now we're going to go to the next one. You have minus sign in front of the 6 and the 4y. So that means you're distributing a negative 1. I can't really write that in there. Let's try that again. Oh, well, there's a negative 1 right there. So minus 1 is going to be multiplied by the 6 and by the 4y. So negative 1 times 6 makes what? makes negative 6, and negative 1